பண்றீங்க? நிச்சா
எப்படி எக்ஸலன்ட் ப்ரெசன்டேஷன் வருது? எப்படி எக்ஸலன்ட் ப்ரெசன்டேஷன்? அந்த ஸ்க்ரீன் அந்த ஸ்க்ரீன் இதை அங்கே வச்சிருக்கேன், அதை பின் பண்ணி விடுங்க வாங்க. அந்த ஸ்க்ரீன் யூடியூப் எனக்கு வரக்கூடாது, பிபிடி எனக்கு வரணும்.
பிபிடி எதுல வச்சிருக்க? இதுல இல்லையா? அதெல்லாம் வந்துச்சு.
ஒரு ஸ்க்ரீன் வந்துருக்கு. போன வாட்டி அதெல்லாம் வந்துருக்கு. இந்த ஸ்க்ரீன் தான் அங்கே தெரியும் யூடியூப்ல.
என்டையர் ஸ்க்ரீன் தான் மீட்டுக்கு அதோட
யூடியூப் புது லிங்க் எடுத்துருங்க, இதை எடுத்து போட்டு. வேறு வழி இல்லை, கட் பண்ணிடுங்கப்பா. இது எங்கே வந்துருக்கு இங்கே பாருங்க. இப்படி தெரிஞ்ச பிள்ளைங்க என்னத்தை பார்க்கும்? இதை நம்ம இது பண்ண போகிறது கிடையாது. எங்கே வருது?
எண்டு கொடுத்துருவேன்.
இல்லை, நான் சொல்றது ஏன் புரிஞ்சுக்க அங்கே இருக்கிறது ஃபர்ஸ்ட் இங்கே பின் பண்ணுங்க. எல்லாரும் ஃபோனுக்கு வருவாங்க. கேம் அங்கே இஸ் ப்ரெசென்டிங் வருதா, இது வந்து ஷேர். இப்போ இது யூடியூப்ல வருதான்னு பாருங்க. இது ஃபுல் ஸ்க்ரீன் ஆக்குங்க. ஆக்குங்கப்பா. வருதான்னு பாருங்க. இப்பதான் ஃபுல் ஸ்க்ரீன் ஆச்சு. அதே லிங்க்ல தானே வருது, நம்ம கன்ஃபியூஷன் இல்லை. நல்ல பேப்பர்லயே எடுங்க. இப்படியே வச்சு
சரி ஒண்ணுதா
Hello everyone, this is Lakshmi from Pichandikulam. Just checking if everything's okay.
Yes, ma'am. Everything is okay.
Okay, great. So I'm going to mute from here just for now, and when it will start, I'll put the video and the mic on, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, Joss is here with me.
Yeah. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, Joss is here with me.
Ma'am, can we start, ma'am?
Yes, ma'am.
Principal, ma'am, can we start?
Yes, Mangai, start.
Thank you, ma'am. Praise be you, Lord, with all your creatures. A warm morning to everyone present here. I, Dr. Mangai Kumaran, Assistant Professor of Education, Eco Club Coordinator, Stella Matutina College of Education, Ashok Nagar, Chennai, is extremely elated to welcome you all for the international webinar on Remembering the Future Garden, the story of Pichandikulam Forest. The earth is our home, our only home. Lord, grant us the wisdom to care for the earth until it. May I now request Sister Shija Vayola, Assistant Professor of Education, to lead us through the prayer.
Commit your way to the Lord, in Him, and He will act. Loving Heavenly Father, we praise and thank you for this wonderful morning that you have given each one of us. Originator of all creation, you made a world full of beauty and infinite expression of your glory and love for all. Lord, we come to you this hour asking for your blessing, guidance, wisdom, and support. As we are going to begin this online international webinar on Remembering the Future Garden, the story of Pichandikulam Forest. Lord, make this webinar be a successful one. Bless our resource person, our secretary sister, principal ma'am, staff members, and all the students of SMCE. Lord, give us good health of mind and body to do your will. For all this we pray through our Lord Jesus Christ. Amen.
Thank you, sister. I now request Mrs. J. Rubina, Assistant Professor of Psychology, to deliver the welcome address.
A quote by Viktor Frankl. When we are no longer able to change a situation, we are changed to change ourselves. The secret to change is to focus all our energy not on fighting the old, but on building new. A quote by Viktor Frankl. On behalf of Stella Matituna College of Education and Eco Club unit, I take this opportunity to welcome Mr. Josh Brook, the resource person of this international webinar on Remembering the Future Gardens, the story of Pichandikulam Forest. Very proud to introduce Mr. Josh Brook, Director, Pichandikulam Forest, Auroville. Josh grew up in the Australian state of Tasmania, a place full of wild natural beauty, and came to Auroville in 1970. After living in Europe and Africa, he joined the early pioneering efforts in land restoration at Auroville and founded the Pichandikulam community in the year 1970, which is now a vibrant 60-acre forest with 800 species of plants in the grassland, a nursery, and an ethno-medicinal forest. In 2002, he embarked on environmental education to the villages by setting up Nadukuppam Environmental Education Center in a village near Auroville. He also founded Pichandikulam Forest Consultant, a business unit to provide environmental restoration services, and is currently directing the restoration biodiversity at Adayar Punga in Chennai. We are grateful to have such an eminent personality in our midst. Welcome you, sir. Next, I appreciate and acknowledge the support and guidance given by the Secretary, Reverend Sister Pauline Mary, and the Principal Ma'am, Dr. Mrs. Joseph Catherine. Welcome, Sister. Welcome, Ma'am. I take this opportunity to welcome the Organizing Secretary, Dr. Mrs. Mangai Kumaran, Assistant Professor of Education and Eco Club Coordinator, and Organizing Committee members, and all the faculty members for their constant support. I also welcome wholeheartedly the students of Stella Matituna College of Education, students and teachers from various institutions. Once again, I welcome you all.
Thank you, Rubina ma'am. Progress is possible only with a change, and those who can change their mind can change anything. It gives me immense pleasure to hand over the session to the resource person who has conquered the nature and has created an impact with a great difference in order to make our earth healthy and support human survival with sustainable future. May I now request Mr. Josh Brooks, founder, director of Pichandikulam Forest, to take over the session. Sir, please.
Hello everyone, can you hear me? This is Lakshmi from Pichandikulam.
Yes, Lakshmi, we can hear you.
Yeah, thanks Sudha. We're just having some internet connectivity issues at this point, but we can hear you and we can see the screen with mobile data. So just give us 2 more minutes. Are we all here? Are we ready to start?
Yes, ma'am, we can go ahead.
Okay, we're just trying to see if our internet is back. Sorry about this. We haven't had trouble, and this morning. Okay, I think we're back on. Just wait a second. Already back. Hello. Hello, can you hear us?
Yes, ma'am, it is audible.
Okay, we can start now.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Who is presenting first?
Ma'am, you can do.
I thought there was a welcome address first. The call that is done, Lakshmi.
So it's over, Lakshmi.
Okay.
Lakshmi, just a minute. I have a small request. This is Sudha from Pichandikulam. I request, just since we have internet problem, I request only the presenters to have their video on, so that it will take less of internet space for the presenter, for presenting.
Oh, great. Thanks. I'm going to share our screen now. Can you see our screen? Hello? Can you see our screen?
Yes, Lakshmi, we can see your screen.
Oh, great. Everyone please. They can see you. They can see you in a little box, and they can see this entire big screen.
Good morning, everybody. Can people hear me?
Yes, yes. Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
So, my name is Jos, and I'm speaking from a forest, a 70-acre forest in the green belt of Oroville. We're very lucky. I'm sure we're luckier than most people, having lived through even the last 6 months in this forest, milking our cows, growing our seedlings, making our plans, loving our trees and animals, wildlife. And this morning, I can't see all of you, obviously, and I understand there are a whole bunch of people out there. And I'm going to try to share some of the things that have influenced me in my life, my sort of humble career as a green person. And if it gets boring, then I won't even know whether you go somewhere else or go and make a coffee, but perhaps some of it might be hard to understand, but I understand at the end we might have some time for a few questions too. I'll just go forward here. The picture here is of a plant it's called Mimsalon umbellatum in the scientific term. It would have covered a lot of the Coromandel coast a long time ago. Now there's not so much left. The mother of Pondicherry, who I probably will refer to now and again in this little talk, she named this flower Miracle. I think that's what we're all hoping for and trusting in. Just hang on.
Yeah, sorry.
So ready to.
Okay, sorry. You want to move?
I trust you can see these pictures. And I've been asked, and you expect me to talk about ecology and green things. And actually, I'm going to start by talking a little bit about football. Now, these pictures are probably of one of the most polluted, darkest places on the planet in, say, the second half, from about 1850 to 1900. It's a place called Manchester. And it was very rich in a way. Some people were very rich there. It was the center of industry for the world. It was using a lot of the resources of India, cotton, etc. But it was pretty black, pretty dark. It was the high point of the so-called Industrial Revolution. And yeah, not exactly wonderful conditions for living. And this is, you can imagine, in, say, 1870. This, of course, is, what it's like living in Mumbai in some conditions. As humanity, we haven't made a lot of progress from there to this, but that's another story. This is part of the problem. The problem of maybe things like equity and inequality, etc. Right, here's our football story. Now, 1878, some of you perhaps have heard of a little football club called Manchester United. And it was actually started in 1878 in Manchester by the people that made trains. They got together and they started a football club. The thing is, there it is. Look at their long shorts. And they had fun playing. This is part of my story, that a few years before 1878, an Indian doctor had taken his 3 boys by boat from Calcutta to England, and dropped these 3 boys off to live with a clergyman in Manchester, just round the corner from where, a few years later, the Manchester United Football Club was formed. The little boy sitting there actually became and one of the most important people in the freedom struggle for India, in the development of a new India. It was Sri Aurobindo. That little boy grew up in Manchester for 6 years. He probably played football in the evening. Of course, later, after being the revolutionary in Bengal, escaped to Pondicherry, and around him grew up the Sri Aurobindo Ashram. Well, the Sri Aurobindo Ashram in Pondicherry, I hope that some of you know about that, perhaps you visited. Of course, it gave birth to the ideas and later the physical being of the place where I sit now, Auroville. The mother, a French Egyptian lady, came and joined him, and she physically put together the ashram, and then this idea of creating an international township, people from all over the world. And that's what we are, these few thousand people living here just north of Pondicherry, in our gardens, forests, workshops, etc. But I'm just trying to position where I am and what was the formation, what was some of the influences. So he spent those 6 years before he went to London and then to Cambridge and then came back to India. He was there in Manchester. I always think that probably he blessed that football club too. Now, 60 years later, it's just part of my story. I'm sharing this personal thing. I was actually born 60 years later, just around the corner from the Manchester Football Club and where Sri Aurobindo lived at that time. And I was born in a sort of terrible time, in that crazy experience that the world faced called World War II. So right at the end of World War II, and rockets were raining down on places, and particularly Manchester, that's when I was born. And when I was born, this is what Manchester looked like after a bombing raid, completely smashed. I think I'm just positioning my time as it's history. And of course it makes me very old, doesn't it? You can work out, but that's okay. But these memories are there. England after the war had its, I thought a lot of people would have wanted to go somewhere else. We went to Australia. My family went to Australia, and it was sort of, Australia was a bit fresher after the devastation of Europe. It's just to remember, India was nearly invaded, but Europe was devastated. And this is not so long ago. I say, in my lifetime. We went on a boat. Those days you went on a boat. It took 6 weeks to get to Australia. You went through the Suez Canal. Yeah, if you took an airplane, it took about 5 days to get from, say, Australia to Europe. Right. We went to Australia and went to live in a place called Tasmania. Now, several hundred years before, when India, of course, was very much, let's say, under the control of the British, the East India Company, etc. The colonial powers were everywhere. People were traveling in ships like this. And these ships were coming from the Dutch colonies. The Dutch colonies were in Indonesia. And a man came called Abel Jansen Tasman, down from Indonesia, discovering parts of Australia. Now, I use this word discover because at that time, Europeans were only just starting to understand that this big continent to the south of New Guinea, India, Malaysia was there. They were adventurers. They were mostly looking for things to trade. This drives most things, which in the end is sort of greed. It's what you can take and sell somewhere else for profit and probably, use the people. That's a map of Australia, as you can recognize. You see in the bottom right-hand corner, right down the bottom, a little heart-shaped island of Tasmania. These are journeys in the end of the 17th century, discovering parts of Australia. So I'm just reminding how new it is that people knew anything about, some of these parts of the world. And Australia was one of the last continents to be discovered, and I use that word discovered in sort of inverted commas. That's a map of Tasmania made in 1830. This is the little island where I grew up later. It's a beautiful island, full of wilderness, very different plants, very different animals, because it is an island, just like Australia is an island, so it's unique. When the people went there, they found all sorts of animals, birds, and plants that were completely different from what they'd known mostly in Europe. Now this map is really interesting. You can see it's called Aboriginal Australia. And although I hope you're following a bit this story, I'm telling you of a bit of the influence and the places where I grew up. Now, when the Europeans came to Australia, 1700s, 1800s, 1700s, they thought Australia was empty. Now, this is a very important map, and it's part of a lot of stories of what we say is wilderness. Oh, nobody lives there. No one lives in the Amazon. No one lives in the jungles of perhaps even India. Actually, they do. Each of these colored patches were Aboriginal tribes, different languages, culture that went back 60,000 years. 60,000 years, the Aborigines the people had come from the north, coming across from the islands, and gradually populated Australia and managed it. Obviously, a ecologically sustainable way for all those eons. The Europeans, they just said it was an empty land. This is actually, it's in the museum in Sydney. It says here, the Aboriginal people are saying, you're standing on land of the Gadigal people. What usually happens when people who are in fact invaders come, they kill, or the diseases that they bring wipe out whole population. It happens continually. At the moment, probably, it's more like in Amazonia that sort of thing is happening. These were the people. And those Aboriginal tribes, and their paintings on caves, whether in Tasmania, mainland Australia, can be 60,000 years old. And it continues, the same stories that are depicted there are told still in the Aboriginal mythology. The Aboriginal people are very alive and well. They're lawyers, doctors, parliamentarians, as well as trying to to re-establish whole aspects of their culture in Australia. It's a whole other story. I don't want to do that, but the point, this is part of what I want to say. Here's a painting done of the Aboriginal people in about 1810 in Tasmania. The British, when they came, they could not believe how the landscape looked almost like a garden. And this is the story, one of the ecological points that I want to share with you now, and will come through the rest of what I want to say. This is a book written by academic Bill Gammage, The Biggest Estate on Earth, How the Aborigines Made Australia. By burning very cleverly, knowing the wind, knowing the rain, burning little bits so the grass would come up, so the kangaroos would have grass, the kangaroos would be there, then they could eat the kangaroos, could hunt the kangaroos. They landscaped Australia. Just like years later, and I've been in the Amazon rainforest, there it's been clear and it's been explained to me how the Amazon is planted. And so many areas of what we think, oh, this is wilderness. Actually, people lived there in harmony, knowing the seasons, knowing the berries, knowing the animals, whatever. So this story, in the light of what you perhaps read sometimes, that Australia is on fire. Last year, all of Eastern Australia, incredible devastation. Because these practices, even limited controlled burning, are not done enough. I hope I'm not losing you, but you think about what's happening in California at the moment. What I'm trying to say is that land needs to be nurtured. It needs practices if we want to live sustainably, and particularly in this time of climate change. This story is being very much researched at the moment in Australia. Some of the Aboriginal practices of land management are seriously being considered. On the other hand, I just want to say that the story of Australia, this wonderful country full of extraordinary wildlife and wildscapes and wilderness, is actually the fastest, quickest environmental disaster on the planet in 200 years, because of bringing hoofed animals, because of bad farming practices, because of pollution of rivers. It's bad. But of course, the tourist brochures will always show how wonderful it is. It is so vast, so big, so varied, that you can sort of get away with it. But the invaders, that means the people, the British, everybody who's come there, has seriously damaged ecosystems which the Aboriginals looked after for 60,000 years in a sustainable way. This is the landscape of when the colonists came to Tasmania, they found. Trouble was there. People fought, people killed each other, people died from disease, and the last of the Tasmanian full-blooded Aborigines died in about 1870. Sadness, the oldest people in the world. And this is where I grew up. These were the people. And yeah, it's an interesting statement. Following the 1788 invasion of Sydney and the imposition of foreign law in Australia. Okay, this is not a new story, but it's something as I said, the Aboriginal community is very, very alive and well. And I hope will have increasing influence on policies and the direction of Australia. The wisest people in Australia are old Aboriginal women. They're amazing. Treaty. They are literally asking for a treaty because it was never done. Anyway, this is a little aspect of green ethical politics. There they are, the Aboriginal flag outside of the Parliament House. Right, we'll switch. I hope there's some people still with me. I have no idea.
We've got 120.
Okay.
120 on the GB, so around 150.
Okay. So I grew up in those times of the 50s. Australia was known as the lucky country. It hadn't gone through a war. It was vast, had lots of natural resources. All those mines and all those food. Fantastic. And it's a sort of image of Australia, the Australian bloke, can, cigarette, whatever. At a country fair while I was growing up, and even now, one of the competitions is how to cut trees down the fastest. And you have to sort of climb a pole by making little notches and putting in planks and getting to the top and then cutting the top off the pole. This was the brawn, the tough Australian image. Let's cut down. Let's cut it down. If it stands, let's cut it down. It's a beautiful place though. It's amazing. It's wild. It's often you walk in places where perhaps people haven't even ever before. The Aborigines were not so many. They walked lightly on the land. In Tasmania, it's extraordinary rainforests. Plants that are so special and a part of, we call it a World Heritage Area, which is the highest level of conservation. This is where I grew up. I studied and tried to study this and that and that. Didn't becoming a lawyer, so I left university and my first job was as a lighthouse keeper on a little island off the bottom of Tasmania. It's where I lived. The beauty, yeah, it's all there. You never forget these images. This is south of Australia, south of Tasmania, so on the way to the Antarctic. It was a time in Australia not very nice. White Australia policy, Vietnam War. The young people like myself had to go and fight with the Americans. I didn't like that idea, so I ran away. I went and lived in Turkey, in troglodyte communities. I lived in Paris. In Paris, which was exciting, intellectually, etc. But it was at that time in the 60s of a lot of questioning. People, the May student and workers' revolution as part of that, where we questioned a lot of things, which I hope that's what you're supposed to do. When you're young, you're supposed to do it all the time, but you do it particularly when you're sort of getting into your 20s and you say, well, what's this all about? And there you were in this sort of one of the intellectual capitals of the world in Paris, and suddenly you're questioning what this consumer society, etc., was all about. So, yeah, that was 68, the French Revolution. We were part of it, workers and students. it was more than, as fun. It was so stimulating. It changed so much in so many people's brains. And soon after that, I left Europe. I went and lived in the Himalayas. I lived on the Ganges. I lived in old villages in Kumon. And before coming south to this magic garden of South India, Tamil Nadu, and discovered there something I'd heard about from travelers who talked about this place that was being started in South India. And I came across Oroville, and I came across the mother. So I came here in '69 to Pondicherry. The mother was there. She was still guiding, giving advice, and having the year before in '68 created in the township of Oroville. This is a picture from '68 where soil from 120 countries was brought, put in an urn. That urn is still there. And hundreds of people, thousands of people came. Indira Gandhi was very much involved, and because it was an invocation. UNESCO, United Nations thought, what a wonderful idea to build a city of harmony and peace and brotherhood and sisterhood, and get people from all over the world to come without nationalism, without this, without. We just wanted to work for a university, a place of sort of unending education. That's the charter. You've probably seen it before, and you can see it online. I don't want to. This isn't just about Oroville, but many of us here still find this, as far as you can go. It doesn't belong to anybody. We don't own anything here. It's unending education. It's sort of a bridge between the past and the future. We'd like that. But don't forget, this is 50 years on. This is 50 years ago, and our idealism, etc., and the wonderful, imagination, the spiritual imagination of someone like the mother, was a good guide. But it's a place of research, material and spiritual. Right, well, when everybody went home from the inauguration ceremony, which people tend to do, it's called a function, a good function. And it was a good function, but there were probably bits of paper blowing across an empty landscape. But this is what Oroville looked like. And when I turned up a year later, this is what confronted us. It wasn't as if it was green, rice fields or beautiful gardens. It all had to be sort of done. And that's great. That was the challenge. I think for most of us at that time, and we were young, we were healthy, we were full of imagination, and our law degrees or philosophy degrees or whatever we'd done didn't help us much. We had to learn how to build little houses to protect ourselves from rain or sandstorms. This is one of the first houses I built for myself. I think that's me in the top window. Yeah, that's me building a house. So I say it was a time of having fun also. And this is what and playing. The mother was very insistent on that. Please, look, here's a place, now play seriously, but play. Experiment all the time. This is the landscapes we had at the time, eroded laterite, not much there. And we were also quietly beginning to build that structure that was invoked right from the beginning, called the Matramang, which is just it's a meditation place. It's a place of where you get charged, where your batteries get charged. And of course, some of you might have seen it. Some might even have been inside it. But this is a picture from probably 71. We used to go up in the early morning and chutneys and numpties and dig the foundation. Later, of course, it got a frame and then got a covering. And this is, 2 years ago, this is in the 50th anniversary. So there's the urn. There's the urn with the soil with the soil from 120 countries. This is the amphitheater. And on the 50th anniversary, water was brought from, I think, 350 locations and mixed together in the urn in the middle, in the bowl in the middle, and then distributed back out again into the world. So soil and water. But 50 years ago, this is our environment. This is the local village, Kattavendis, and pretty, basic. And these were our teachers, of course. These are people, perhaps they couldn't read and write, but they could tell stories for hours on end. And we were there just growing out our ragi, our pompu, and learning how to tie knots and build houses. To an old picture, that is. What you call pioneers. And there's nothing like it. You, perhaps, who are listening to this, you young, vibrant, incredible India, find a piece of land. Homestead. Pioneer. It's amazing. You become quite healthy. But these are the places we built in the early 70s. This was the first hut in Pichandikulam. In Pichandikulam, I came here in 73. I'd been in Oroville a few years, watching the sun come up and go down and the wind blow, and making lots of friends with the local people. And I started this place at Pichandikulam with a group of young boys from the local village and with our bullock carts and mixing it with geodesic technology, geodesic architecture. And it was always a mixture, or it always is. The past, the future, and the black cat. This is homesteading, the beginning of this community of Pichandikulam, which is now 70 acres. And that's a picture taken in 73. The guy on the left, he's a traditional healer. He was a poet, playwright, and taught me about the uses of plants. And, not just pretty, they're not just botanical specimens, they're part of a whole culture. And that there's 400 plants in this area that are still used for medicine. That's me on the right. This is the landscape. So at the same time, here we are positioned. Just right at the bottom is Pondicherry. It comes to Oroville, a circle of Oroville. And that triangle between the Oroville, Pondicherry, Marikkanam, and Tindivanam is 800 square kilometers. This around this Kalavelli tank. And that's what we started to begin to understand. This is where we were. And that's something that the green people that were planting trees, I think, really got to know where they were. So they went out on bicycles, on foot, on bullock carts, on motorcycles, into these little remnant forests, and discovering that every one of those blue patches in this map is people-made. They're not natural. This is a constructed landscape. Do you remember the pictures of the Australia? A landscape formed over 60,000 years. This is formed definitely over several thousand. Storm management. I'm sure that played part of it. Huge storms that some of you have experienced, like a few years ago in Chennai. Why hadn't those storms been coming and going over millenniums? Of course. And some smart Raja, Zamindar, powerful guy, village headman, just said, hey, I don't think it's a good idea to be washed away. Let's do something about controlling this water flow. And also, it will allow us to have perhaps another crop of rice. Or become a bigger community to be able to make the wonderful temples of this area. So this is a constructed landscape, and this we began to understand. In this map, see how little forest area is left. 0.001% perhaps is left of the Coromandel Cove forest. Right at the top, you've got the hills, the Gingies, the beginnings of little bits of the Eastern Ghats, water coming down through ponds. But by the time it gets down the bottom, this is in Oroville, that's almost millions of tons of soil that's been washed out into the sea. And farming that was often almost more like hydroponics. There's not a lot of vegetation to hold the water. When the monsoons did come, this is how it flowed. This is a picture of the canyons of Oroville. That's a lot of water going out into the sea. The sea would be red for 20 kilometers up the coast. It's like the blood of Oroville. We said to ourselves, well, this is crazy. How can we create a township here? This wonderful dream of the mother and the dream of all the people that had worked so hard in the decades before Oroville started. How could we think of doing this if the very foundations were being washed away? So let's stabilize. Let's try and stop this flow of this melting of the landscape, and then the blowing of the landscape in the dry months when sandstorms, dust storms would just blow for weeks on end. This didn't make sense. So that was the real stimulus for the thousands of kilometers of bunds of, what do you call them, little check downs, and the planting of trees. And that started from the beginning. There's the mother, she loved plants. She gave us so many ideas and guidance, so much guidance about how to work with nature. She would say, look, you need compost, you need the seedling. Don't forget the spirits of the forest. They're still there. They're hiding in the sacred groves, in the canyons. You work with them. I think from the beginning, we understood this importance of water. And of course, we began to know that incredible culture of those constructed landscapes. It's complex. From the Arush and the Yeris to the Kanmais, right down to the Kolams, the Kuttai, to Uranis. This is, it's your heritage. It's the heritage of the extraordinary Dravidian Tamil people. Wow. That's Chembrambakam. Right, back in the times of colonial India several hundred years ago, but that had been constructed too. You know Chembrambaka. What happens when Chembrambaka was not managed properly? You remember the floods? What, 5 years ago? Before the population out of control, blah, blah, before the pollution from all the industries, it was really nice to take a boat on the Coombe. This is part of my story because we work quite a lot in Chennai. But you can bring it back. This is in our lifetime almost. Right? We can swim in the Coombe again. Take a vow, all of you, that we can swim again in your lifetime in the Adia and the Coombe. Why not? Why not? But what's happened? These are pictures that I've taken myself over the years, when water tables were higher, when you could have open, when you could have these water lift systems with bullets. You could have the kawales, the yetoms, yeah? There's extraordinary systems where you lift water just a meter out of the pond into the rice fields. And you can't do this without singing. And it's pretty difficult to sing with deep water. Of course, it's just touching on the genius of India too, wherever. Some of you, I'm sure, have been to Rajasthan or Gujarat. I think Gujarat. Yeah. And I took these pictures because we worked a lot in the 80s, recording the traditional systems of Rajasthan and Gujarat. Genius. At the beginning of Pichandikulam, we needed water. Our water table is 150 feet. We drilled down by hand, round and round, corkscrew, lift up, and put up windmills, then made of wood and canvas. They're called Cretan windmills, to lift the water up so that we could water our electricity, and then later water the new sea. Yeah, at that time, still but rare, of course, bullocks and even buffaloes we used. And these were our teachers, learning how to plow. We had to learn how to plow. Otherwise, the guy over the fence would laugh at you on the next field. We learned about the samai, about the tenai, about the ragi and kombu and the varagu. We grew it, ate it. And we still do. We watch the oil mills making the sesame peanut, even neem oil. And particularly more and more we understood this incredible rare vegetation, which was hiding. Where was it hiding? In the sacred groves and these temple forests. We mapped these groves from north of Chennai down to the bottom of India. Hundreds of them, finding the mother trees, going back, getting the seed, going back to Oracle, learning how to germinate them. Learning how to germinate them, and then starting to grow our forests. These forest groves are still there, getting more and more devastated by encroachment. And this is one of the works to protect them, protect, conserve, and expand them. They're very popular, but that's the problem. Thousands of people going there on a Friday, on a Monday, cooking their rice, their chickens. Beautiful This horse is made of pottery. I mean, it's cooked in situ. We got to know the environment. We got to know where we were, the wetland. The wetland, he's been out all night, he's prawns. When the wetland dries up, then they cut the sambal, put it on the roofs, the symbiosis of nature and habitat. We saw the culture that we were in. One of my favorite pictures. This is in the middle of Chennai. You probably know it. It's in Flower Bazaar. But to allow the tree to be there and just to build around it, something wouldn't happen in Australia. As we got to know our story, we sang it more and more. This was the thing called the Green Walk. We went for a week. We put with our bullock cart into the villages around Oroville. We put a solar panel on and could play little videos to the kids in the evening. It was fun. Singing songs, planting trees. In the 80s, I was in working with the Rajasthan Seva Sangh, documenting water systems and tree planting systems in the Thar Desert. This was called the Punch. But activism, just gentle activism, is so important. Please, please, please do it. I started to grow. Yeah? And all those things that come when you do plant trees. You don't plant trees. You plant butterflies. You plant birds. You plant, in the end, civet cats and rusty spotted cats, all sorts of wonderful things. And you're discovering the old trees of the area that hundreds, sometimes 300, 400, 500 years old, the size of this Terminale Arjuna tree. And there's a sort of reverence. I'm also, luckily, with people in other parts of the planet who live in reverence of the environment they're in. When you've walked in the Amazon rainforest, you just don't question a lot of things. You don't ask a lot of questions again. It's so incredible. The beauty of a place where in 1 square kilometre of this forest where I was walking when I took this picture has more biodiversity than the whole of North America. 120 different sorts of snakes. And the beauty is overwhelming. The beauty of the people and the sadness of the people. I'm sharing this because the story goes out. If you do this and you have a lot of sisters and brothers everywhere trying to protect and plant the same thing. This is another story. The mark on this stone is 12,000 years old. This glyph. People who were perhaps the first people. And they're wonderful. They're wonderful to be with. They're full of wisdom. And they're right on the edge, like people are. Yeah, these are the San people, the Bushmen of South Africa. I spent time with them. So in our own context, where we come from, we have a young archaeologist working with us. These are the archaeological sites because we feel it's important to get through to the school children, to everyone where they are, the sense of place. 2,500 years ago, which is not far, it's not long. It's nothing like the 60,000 of the Aborigines in Australia. But these stories are known, we've recorded them, and we honour them. And in Oroville, we have an archaeological museum. But to get through to people where we come from helps us to know where we're going. And there, 1,000 years ago, when poets came together, sang songs, and then they're chipped to the temples. This helps us to know the vegetation, the animals, the culture of that time. This is the high point. I ask you whether you think we're in the high point of Dravidian civilization. Question. We transcribe them. This is in the French Institute. Palm leaf manuscripts onto computers. And in the end, it comes back to collecting seeds. Collecting seeds This is a picture taken 30 years ago in Pichandikulam. This was our life for all these decades, collecting seeds, growing seedlings, and then teaching. And with the traditional healers, to the young people. This has been our story. And to the point where this picture, this is recent. This is where part of our team has worked with the women to the point where they now collect the plants, make the medicine, and sell the medicine even as far as Delhi. Their own self-sufficient little group, little business, enterprise, sustainable enterprise development. So this is Pichandikulam. Now, it's got 800 species of plants. We use art a lot. We sculptures and granite, paintings. And of course, it's all the other things that you get when you plant a forest. The birds. Yeah, the morning light, the sound, the silence. You plant silence, you plant beetles, and you plant, also the hay and raptors. Yeah, it's all come back. The point is, the rusty spotted cat we recorded on a night camera trap. It had not been seen for 187 years in this area. As we learned our song, we went out into the villages. We adopted a bit of school, a very rundown school, known as the worst school in Tamil Nadu, 10% pass rate, no water, no toilets, 4.5 teachers. This is about 13 years ago. And we built a little environment center. We like building environment centers. We like having a place where you can have conversation. Then the kids collected the seeds. They planted lots of plants and had all sorts of interesting training, whether this would be strictly allowed in schools, but fauna sensitization. So many snakes are quite friendly. Anyway, this sort of material that we do, one of our team drew this by pen. It's part of a set of many posters of the whole ecosystem. It's another training space we've created out there in a young forest of 30 acres, which I hope some of you might come and visit sometime. But this is all created. This is what we call water retention landscapes. We love making ponds. Perhaps the ancients made big ones, the zamindars and the maharajas. We like making small ones. So the water stays higher in the watershed. And then we can pump it out again with our windmill that we design and make in our lettuce and plant awareness classes, kitchen garden classes. We also like looking after the animals, for making balls. Then you have a cattle camp, hold the tongue of the animal, push the ball down its throat, blah, blah. This last little bit is, I think, about something in the middle of that city where a lot of you are, I presume, the great city of Madras or Chennai. And we were asked by the corporation, the government, basically to help with transforming a really filthy, messy area in Adyar. And it was a challenge of linking people with a restoration exercise. That was the plan we put together over a year, and we showed it to Madam Jayalalitha and then to Mr. Karunanidhi, and all sorts of people were involved. Lots and lots of people were involved. It went on for years to the point where we started actually doing it. After starting the work, signing the contract, this is the definition of what we were given. Yeah, that was a biryani hotel on the road. 50 years of dumping building rubble. We had to move it. June 2008. By December, we created that water body again. From the Santom Causeway up to past Karpagam Bridge, up to Arcade Road. Gradually, we planted 200,000 plants of 187 indigenous species, all closely monitored by the best botanists in Tamil Nadu, making sure we're doing the right thing. And it's become something else. And of course, the process has started again. Things give birth, and a fisher bird comes, and you bring in beauty and simple design. And this is the Ponga now. It's the place in the middle of that city of 11 million people. And we've tried to create something where people can remember where they came from, because we all came from wilder places. The fiddler crabs come back to the estuary, the pelicans, of course. And there, it's nice when the bottom left-hand corner, when things start eating other things, then you know that you've got processes underway. Using natural materials, bringing technologies of water treatment, low forms, and lots of art, lots of little bits of carving and painting, and people in the end become santosham. So, yeah, this is the Ponga in different light, in different incarnations. But our environment center, remember, that's what it looked like. That's what it looked like now, 12 years ago? Yeah, and we turned it into that. It looked like that. That's kind of, I'm having you into that. I think the word is transformation. You've got to change things. Find something that's a mess and make something beautiful out of it. That's my deep plea. And there's plenty to do. There's Srinivasapuram. Look at the garbage on the edge. Now this is recent. This is last year. This is part of our team. Perhaps some of these are watching today. Part of our team that are making a floating island. We actually create an island, pretty high technology, but simple also. And it can be bamboo. And then plants. This is actually creating, yeah? We've got one anchored off the boat club that's got solar panels that run a pump, and it's quite a complex one. But this is a very interesting technology, which we hope more and more to bring to the waterway. Imagine the Buckingham Canal. You don't have to imagine it. You can go and look at it. That's what it looks like now. Look like that. The Buckingham Canal could have a series of floating islands with real and artificial root systems going down, creating a habitat for all sorts of cleaning microorganisms. And as I said, let's work towards the day where we can cycle along a sweet-smelling Buckingham Canal to go for a swim in the Atlantic. This is part of the education program that the team in Chennai has been working on for the last decades. We started this 15 years ago. It was very active. And we've started again recently. And we're moving out into other schools. And perhaps we're going to be involved with even some of you people too, with our humble experience of, say, fun, experiential learning. All sorts of ways, definitely, as you can see, not in a classroom. And lots of teaching of rare phenomena which I cannot find in the curriculum, or I cannot find in any department in any of your institutions, called Department of Common Sense. You remember a few years ago? A lot of water, a lot of people drowned, a lot of damage. And then the people who have all these big industries and companies, in this case it was TCS, approached us and said, look, could you help work on the lakes again? It's back to the lake story. We made a plan. We dug This is only last year when we created that. If you go out to Sirisiri, that's sort of what it looks like. Now, this picture was actually only taken last week. So there's water there, all the plants we planted, and we hope to plant another 10,000 this year, perhaps with your help. We created these hills, and these are the forests that are going to be into the future. Actually, thousands of acres of indigenous forest that could be replanted, restored all the way through to Vandalu. The birds of Sirisiri, the flora of Sirisiri. There's plenty of ideas, plenty of plans for more environment centres, for which, can I ask just quietly, we need your help. So, just the last few slides, sort of this little sanctuary. We call it the sanctuary here in Pichandikulam, where I'm sitting now, and this is one of our meeting spaces. And you're most welcome. There again is the miracle plant. And the forest is always full of miracles. It's nothing you can get on Amazon. So, I think that's what it's about. We don't inherit the land of our ancestors. We borrow it from our children. The great writers and Zubri. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Now it's time for the question and answer session. If you have any questions to ask Joss, please do type it in either on the YouTube or directly on the Gmeet if you're on Gmeet.
He that plants trees loves others besides himself. Thank you, sir, for boosting our love for nature and making us realize again that forests are the lungs of our land, purifying the air and giving fresh strength to our people. Thank you so much. Girls, we have the question answer session now. Please share the questions posed to our resource person. Bhavya, Miss Bhavya Narmada, do we have any questions in the YouTube chat box?
Still now there are no questions, ma'am.
Thank you so much. First, we have the question answer session now. Kindly check again.
Ma'am, I'm checking. There is no question still now, ma'am. I posted also saying like students can post a question there.
Aksha is asking, Joss, was there a certain order of plants when you started the restoration?
Yes. As I mentioned, it's this word common sense. We had looked at environments, we looked at the matrix that was there in the remnant forests. We looked particularly at perhaps the edges of the remnant forests, where the remnant forests were trying to come back again. And as much as possible, we copied the matrix, the mixed plants that was there. In some cases, because it is an evergreen forest, we need to have host plants. Sometimes we planted faster growing species, ones that would give some shade. Or perhaps we just used dead leaves or hamara leaves just to create a habitat so these poor young seedlings could grow up in the full sun. but it's mostly common sense. It's observation. All you can teach people is to open their eyes. All you can teach is that people start to see. Start to see. And so we don't have time anymore. We're running from this place to another. We don't have time to get down onto our knees and look closely at the soil. We don't have time to think about, what's growing underneath the ground. And of course, we don't look up so much. So, yeah.
Question from Mary Magimai. Kindly tell about infinity resources, natural resources of India.
I don't understand the infinity resources.
Infinity resources, natural resources of India. Mary, can you elaborate your question? It's not very clear what you're asking for.
Yes, Bhavya. Bhavya, please help the resource person. What is the question actually?
It is about infinity resources. They are asking to tell about infinity resources and natural resources of India.
Do you have plants inside the room?
Right. I'm not sure whether this is the answer. You're asking about the natural resources of India. I mean, India is one of the repositories of such extraordinary natural resources. Yeah. From the Western Ghats to the Himalayas, it's got so many habitats. It's one of the gardens of the world. And the Coromandel Coast, the Cowrie Delta, this area of the world it is a garden. And that's why when I say remembering the future garden, we can bring back this garden. You can have as many technological parks or cities as you like, but if we don't bring back the garden, it's a waste of time. And we can bring back gardens into cities and into technological parks. We're just being asked to help bring a garden into the middle of Sipcot in southern Chennai. So bring back the garden, the climate, the sea, everything is there. The biodiversity is one of the highest on the planet in this wonderful country of India.
Do you have plants inside the room?
Sure. Yeah, if you choose the right plant, so the plant isn't suffering. But, in this climate, keep the air conditioned off. Turn the air conditioned off. For good. Create habitat around you so that there's just cool air flowing in. Air conditioning is not very healthy. And plants don't like air conditioning, I'm sure.
The soil does it have a memory of how fertile it was, something like that?
I'm sure.
How do you bring it back to a state of, or will it ever get, so supposing a soil had the capacity to be very fertile, maybe 100%, will it ever come back to a state of that 100% fertility, and how long will it take for, how big is that process? How long is that process of bringing back the soil's memory of its fertility and its microflora, let's say?
Yeah, interesting questions. The whole thing is memory. I mean, water has memory. Water is one of the most important carriers of memory. But everything has memory. Everything's trying to remember, a time when it was a lot more in balance. But I do question, it's like how long, how many, whatever, it's all this quantitative stuff. Just start the journey. Just start the journey. That's all that is needed. We have no idea. 50 years ago. Remember those pictures? We're in the middle of this funny desert, and we didn't. I don't ever remember questioning and saying, "Well, is it? Are you going to bring back the forest? Is the forest going to be there?" What Mother said, because we said, "Look, what do we do?" We did our degrees in philosophy or languages or this or that or law. We don't know anything about plants. And she said, go out in those empty fields and see if you can see. The only tool we have is our imagination. It is all there. Whether you call it heaven, whether you call it Brindavan, whether you call it whatever, it's all there in the subtle physical, just waiting to come down if you just help it. The planet for a long time, thousands of years, has been used, abused, raped. It's bad news for the planet. And nature is just waiting for some helpers. And this is the point. And it's mostly to do with multinationals, from the Roman Empire to the Greek Empire to every other damn empire. Sorry, we're getting into the politics there, but as soon as you start into that, away from the people who tend the land, who love the land, who know that looking after the soil is their future, as soon as that's taken away by some collective process or multinational cropping patterns or whatever, please, then it starts to go downhill. And Indian soils have been very, very damaged lately, just like soils all over the world. Too many chemicals, right? You know the story. So just start that process. But as soon as you start, then all the energies and the spirits of nature will help you in all sorts of ways. And this doesn't mean we have to go back to being caveman or whatever. Come on. This, we can have the highest, best of technology, yeah? And a whole new wonderful garden to live in. Please, all of you, try and find the film 2040. 2040. Damon Gamal, young Australian filmmaker. I think you could probably find it. It's very positive. 2040. If you can't find it, write to us and we'll make sure you get it. 2040. And it's full of hope. And that's what you need in this really strange, dark time of Corona and post-Corona. Just trust there's going to be hope, but start doing the right thing. So many people are doing the wrong thing, unnecessary things.
Are there any more questions?
No, ma'am, there are no questions.
Thank you, sir, for being so responsive to our participants. The smallest kind of action is worth more than the grandest intention. A true leader has the confidence to stand alone, the courage to make tough decisions, and the compassion to listen to the needs of others. Here is such a wonderful leader who has proved that leadership is a privilege to better the lives of others. I now humbly request Dr. Joseph Catherine, Principal, Stella Matutina College of Education, to propose the oath of thanks. Ma'am?
Yes, thank you, Mangai. A very good morning to one and all. The earth has music for those who listen, says William Shakespeare. Nature is beautiful because it is alive, moving, and mesmerizing. We are all dependent on nature for our survival as well as physical and psychological wellness. But very often we go against nature. It is through eminent nature lovers we are reminded of nature's goodness. Today, Mr. Ross Brooks, Director, Pichandikulam Forest, Auroville, has ignited our minds about environment through the past and present stories and endeavors. We thank you very much, sir, for your inspiring words. Your energy has drawn us closer to nature and society, and your dedication is amazing. Thank you, sir, very much for your wonderful speech. I thank our Secretary, Reverend Sister Pauline Mary, for her motivation. I extend my gratitude to all the staff of Stella Matutina College of Education. I thank Dr. Mangai, Eco Club Coordinator, for enabling us to understand the importance of our environment. I thank also Dr. Bhagyalakshmi, Sister Shija, and Mrs. Rubina for extending her helping hand. I thank the technical team, Ms. Aniruddha, Bhavya, Dhanashri, and Kristen for their support. Let us save nature for the future. Once again, I thank you all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am, for your graceful and gratifying words. I express my sincere gratitude to the patron of this webinar, Reverend Sister Pauline Mary, Secretary of Stella Matutina College of Education, for giving us this wonderful opportunity to organize this international webinar. I also thank the Pichandikulam Forest team, especially Ms. Jayasudha, the Program Manager of Environmental Education of Pichandikulam Forest, and Ms. Lakshmi Venugopal, Senior Manager of Environmental Education, Pichandikulam Forest, for their cooperation and kind support. Thank you, Sudha ma'am and Lakshmi ma'am. I also thank our resource person, Mr. Josh Brooks, for his contribution for educating our students about nature and is insisting on the responsibility to maintain the balance of our ecosystem. We look forward to learn more and more from you, sir. Thank you so much, sir. I thank all our dear students and colleagues of Stella Matutina College of Education for their enthusiastic participation. Thank you all. The feedback link will be shared and you can receive your e-certificates after providing your valuable feedback. With this, we come to the end of the international webinar on Remember the Future Garden, the future of Pichandikulam Forest, conducted by the Eco Club of Stella Matutina College of Education, Chennai. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, dears. அப்ப feedback வந்துருச்சா? second years பார்ப்பாங்க நம்ம அவங்களும்
வந்து பிளெயின் டெக்ஸ்ட் ஒன்னு டெக்ஸ்ட் மானா எனக்கு காட்டுது மேம். அது அந்த மாதிரி மெசேஜ் காட்ட மாட்டேங்குது.
சரிம்மா, நான் போடுறேன். நான் வரேன். நான் வந்து போடுறேன்.
போடணுமா?
நான் போடுறேன்.
என்டர் பண்ணு.
நான் பண்றேன். இருங்க, நான் கரெக்டா பண்ணுவேன். இதுல பேசினா கேட்காது.